Alright, my good people, so today I am going to be reacting to your comments in regards to the future of PlayStation, how you are currently feeling about the brand. I've made a couple videos in regards to PlayStation killing physical video game production, but I really wanted to hear from you guys directly about PlayStation, not just in regards to physical media, but how you feel about the brand overall. And I wanted to put out a message to the fans, a question to actual fans, people who play on PlayStation, just to see like what they are planning to do moving forward. Is there anything that PlayStation could do to quote unquote fix the brand or make them feel that fandom that they felt in the past, or if it was too late? So I put that out there to you guys, and now I want to see how you responded. And specifically, what I said was, if you could fix anything about PlayStation right now, what would you change and why? So I'm going to go through all of your submissions here. We got quite a few, and I'm just going to sort from the top and see how you guys are feeling. So Whiskey Gamer 9402 writes in and says, I couldn't care less about Sony these days. Retro gaming is the new king. So just that idea once again of like, it's too little too late at this point for for Sony to really make a comeback, even if they reverse course. They're saying that like, I don't want to support the business anymore, is kind of what I'm getting from that comment. And it's fair. And also, I got a trailer for the PlayStation 3 rolling right now because I think that is the best. The fat PlayStation 3, I know those things are, they short out and they break and they are not trustworthy whatsoever long term, but good Lord, I love that machine so much. And I'm just waiting for the day, like we know it's going to happen at some point, where we have one of those retro emulation devices that'll play original Xbox and 360 and, PS1 through 3. I'm waiting for a system like that, an old, like where you could actually buy the console, put all of your real games that you actually own into the console. I love that, that new Nintendo 64. I forget the name of it. I'll pull it up for you. Yeah, here we go. It is the Analog 3D. And yeah, it's not even really all that expensive, which I guess that makes sense. It's not necessarily a powerhouse or anything like that. I'm sure they're able to get these things made pretty cheaply. Yeah, only $269.99, and you can buy them right now. Once again, this is not an advertisement, anything like that. I haven't bought one, so I can't speak to the quality at all. But something this is very particular for this channel, but I would love if you could capture gameplay footage internally. Instead of having to get a capture card, I would love if you could just capture the footage, upload it straight to YouTube from these devices. But I know there's a lot of technical nuances with that, and maybe even legal hurdles that you would have to jump through. But yeah, man, I've if they can create something like this, but for OG Xbox 360, PS1 through 3, yeah, I'm right there with you. I've been thinking a lot more about getting back into retro collecting in light of recent news regarding PlayStation killing physical media. Next up, we have Ratio here, who says, have every studio make completely new IP and keep physical media. So that's interesting, because there's some comments in here talking about franchises that people want to bring back, want PlayStation to bring back, but I am very much with you, Ratio, in terms of I would much rather have these studios work on new IP and of course keep physical media. We'll get into that much more throughout the episode, but let's actually dive in a little bit more in regards to new IP. Because they don't have a ton of studios, and we know pretty much everything that the studios are working on. But I guess if we could fantasy book and put any new IP with any studio, let's try to kind of go through that. So I have a list of all of PlayStation's first-party teams pulled up, and we don't have to go through all of them because you have certain teams on here like, Fire Sprite. We really don't know anything other than their VR output. So far, they're working on Until Dawn 2, but we don't really know what quality bar to expect from them. So, but we have Team Asobi right here, makers of Astrobot, obviously. They're a tough one for me because I do think they probably should make an Astrobot 2, with the first one winning Game of the Year. I think the second one shouldn't doubled down so much on PlayStation first party properties. Hopefully, they can lean a little bit more into their third party relationships and just kind of make this overall appreciation piece for gaming for the medium entirely, opposed to an appreciation piece for PlayStation, which I think at the time when Astrobot 2 comes out, it just is going to feel a little bit weird if it's super dick sucky to PlayStation, because I think PlayStation is viewed in a much more negative light now than they were in 2024 when Astrobot released. But I also don't necessarily know if Astrobot is the game. Like, I don't know if Astrobot is going to ever become like a mainstream platformer in the way that they're, when they're looking at their Marios and Crash Bandicoots and Spyros, like, maybe just allowing Team Asobi to make a new IP, a new action platforming IP. I would kind of love to see them make Sly Cooper as well, if we're being real, or Ape Escape, but just a brand new IP that is still in that 3D third person action platforming space. I think Team Asobi should maybe look into that direction opposed to an Astrobot 3. I think they're already working on Astrobot 2, but yeah. Ben Studio is a really easy one, in my opinion. Just make a new spy game. Make something, take what you learned and the technology that you mastered, or I don't know about mastered, but the bones that you created for Days Gone. Like, have a small open world with, different vehicles that you can use, and be a spy in a small open world. And maybe you lean into a darker angle, but I'm not talking about, Siphon Filter. I don't know if there's much juice in the Siphon Filter IP. I think it would definitely be worth just exploring a brand new IP with very similar themes, and maybe going a little bit darker into some sort of, detective. You thinking like you're going into that Max Payne territory, Punisher territory, where you're playing as a dude who is super, like, he has a lot of trauma that he's dealing with, and maybe medicating himself, and he's battling his own demons and addictions and shit like that. And I don't know, I just think that direction, they already have the third person shooter expertise from decades and decades of work on Siphon Filter, Uncharted Golden Abyss, Days Gone, and then now they have the technical expertise, or we're getting to that point of developing the technical expertise with the open world, having a vehicle, having a motorcycle that you can drive around in an open world. I would love to see them return to something like that. But if they can't make a Days Gone 2, then make a new spy game, a new really fucking dark spy game. Guerrilla is one where it's just like, dude, stop making multiplayer Horizon and make Horizon 3. I desperately want to see what the fuck happens in that third, in the third entry for that franchise. It is going into some wild directions narratively that I want to see fleshed out. But other than Horizon, I mean, you think about their water tech and just how impressive that technology is. I would love to see them make a pirate game and fully explore that technology even further, and have much more interaction and dynamic, even like with Black Flag. I've been playing a little bit of Black Flag and seeing the tornadoes spawn in the ocean and the massive waves, and having stuff like that where the ocean is a threat and an enemy in the game. That'd be pretty sick to see Guerrilla try to tackle that with their, they're brilliant on a technical front. So I'd love to see what they could do with just tripling down on that water technology and the wave technology that they mastered with Forbidden West. But Haven, we have no idea. Housemarque, one I've been saying for a while with Housemarque is to just make a Star Wars bounty hunter game. You know what I mean? Like, Housemarque is a team that they make incredible bullet hell, or what do they call it? Bullet ballet, third person shooters with great movement, but they just don't have the commercial appeal that I think PlayStation wants them to find. And maybe putting an IP with their brand of third person shooting can wake people up to how talented this team is. But in the process of doing that, you can't make Star Wars Bounty Hunter a $70 roguelike. Like, to make an actual fucking video game with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and, you know, you can save it anytime, and make a normal game for normal people. Which I know they tried doing that a little bit with Soros, and supposedly you can make Soros extremely easy, but I just think the proposition when you tell someone, because there most people aren't going to do some deep dive into understanding, like, oh, okay, well, if I want to make this like a normal video game, I actually can. But whenever like the selling point is, hey, here is this punishing $70 roguelike. Just even a $70 roguelike in general. I think Hades 2, as beloved and critically acclaimed as Hades 2 is, coming off of a Game of the Year winner for a lot of sites with Hades in 2020, if they put $70 on Hades 2, as much as people love the first game, no one's going to buy it. I just don't think that genre is ever going to be a $70 genre. So trying to keep their identity intact while moving away from that genre, I think would do Housemarque a lot of good, man. Because I think the studio is too talented for, like, I don't want to see layoffs hit. I don't want to see PlayStation let them go. And hopefully PlayStation is recognizing that that studio is just excellent at their craft, and it's worth having these teams around, even if they're making niche product, because it provides a level of prestige to your brand when you're having 90s and 89s on Metacritic, and that it just kind of, it's never going to be the thing that makes someone buy a console, or it's never going to be the thing that makes the masses buy a console, but to just have that little bit of icing on the cake where you're like, damn, we got a solid lineup for, because you look at 2025, that's the icing on the cake. Soros, no one's really talking about Soros as everyone's looking at Wolverine and Tokon, and, you know, people are looking at these other games as like the main tentpole launches for PlayStation in 2025, Phantom Blade Zero, but it's nice to have that little cherry on the top with Soros. But with all that said, Housemarque, work on a damn, they need to get a license, I think. And I know PlayStation already has way too many license deals going on with Insomniac, which is next up here, and, you know, their workings with Marvel. But Insomniac, to make a new IP, I would be really down for Insomniac to just take a crack at whatever the fuck they want to do. You know what I mean? That's a team that has just been so consistent. I would just be like, hey, go make what y'all want. What is something you're really passionate about? You've been in the Marvel mines for quite some time. What do you want to make? I'd love to see them take that Rift technology that they utilized in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, you know, and transporting to these different dimensions and instantaneously swapping in between worlds and shit like that. I'd love to see them do something like that that was more sci-fi or more, you know, dystopic, futuristic, having like a Blade Runner-esque world where there's some type of time travel going on, or time dilation, or just distorting time to some degree, and actually being able to, and also like you could kind of combine different things where you could have some sort of grapple gun as one of your main mechanics that would feel a lot like the web swinging in Spider-Man, and then have the rifts, the rift technology similar to what you had in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, but in just like a bleak dystopic world. And I don't know, that I think something like that would be dope as shit. Media Molecule, if I'm being real, I think kind of the same thing I said with Team Asobi applies here. Just a new, colorful. PlayStation needs more of that, needs more color, needs more small-scale experiences. I know there's a lot of rumor right now of Media Molecule making an open world platformer, which could be cool, but I think they need some small scale experiences. I'd be cool with Media Molecule taking on some of their old IP, even making their own Ratchet game, Ape Escape, Jack and Daxter, Sly Cooper, any of the platformers from the PS2 era, and seeing what they could do with their spin on it. I think that's a studio that really needs to prove themselves right now, and maybe a new IP wouldn't necessarily be the safest bet, but yeah, just if they were going to make it, I think, you know, when I think of really promising games that just didn't quite deliver, and I shouldn't even say didn't deliver, but the Plucky Squire was a game, when you see the trailer and, you know, you're playing in this like textbook adventure and you're roaming the pages and doing platforming and fighting in this top-down Zelda-esque manner, and then getting off the pages and entering into this Toy Story world, little person, big world scenario. There's something to that is just, it is so magical. And when you start playing the Plucky Squire, there is this instant magic to it whenever you first get to roam around the bigger 3D environments, but it just didn't quite have the staying power for me. But something like that, a team like Media Molecule, I would be really, really curious to see their take on something similar. And I mean, since it's been done here with Plucky Squire, it might be hard to really surprise in any major way, but I think their gameplay chops are quite a bit stronger. And then here we have Naughty Dog next up. Naughty Dog's one where I'm just like, dude, let's see something on Intergalactic. I just want to see gameplay for Intergalactic. But I do think something that could be interesting for Naughty Dog, I'm trying to think, they haven't made anything like real fantasy. And I'm not the biggest fantasy guy, but when I think of fantasy games, I never really think of crazy high production value. You know what I mean? Like, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is maybe the closest we get there, but it's not fantasy. You know what I mean? It's a very realistic 15th century Bohemia. Like, it's not fantasy. It's just old. It's just horses and like, you have that old way of speaking that it feels akin to fantasy, but it's not. And so whenever I'm trying to find like really high production value in the fantasy space, there's not a ton of it. I'm sure there's something out there that I'm just clearly forgetting. The Witcher is in that realm, but that's a decade ago. You know what I mean? That game came out 10 years ago. So it's wild to see The Lord of the Rings and to see, Game of Thrones and these massive fantasy IP out there, and knowing that fan base would yearn for a true cinematic fantasy experience in the game space. Like, I'm kind of surprised we really don't have anything like that. And Naughty Dog, with the way they leveled up in terms of gameplay for The Last of Us 2 and the melee combat, that actually makes me curious to see what they could do with swordplay and spells and having, because Naughty Dog has had vehicles and shit in their past games. Could they have, flying dragons and hopping onto the backs of dragons, like shit in that? Honestly, Crimson Desert might be one of the most cinematic fantasy games of all time, which is criminal because the story is god awful. But to see somebody who actually has writing chops go in there and try to tell a compelling fantasy story, I'd be somewhat down for that, as much as I don't like fantasy typically. This could be the entire video just going through and and fucking, fantasy booking these studios, but I guess not. Pretty much everything else here isn't. It's like support teams and port teams and sports teams and Polyphony, the Gran Turismo team. But you do have Sony Santa Monica on there, and Sucker Punch, another one. Two teams that Sucker Punch, for me, it's like I want to see them go back to Infamous, but I honestly, I'd rather see them make a new IP as well. And Santa Monica is just like, good lord, that is definitely the team that I want to see make a new IP. It's nothing but God of War since 2005. Yeah, they did Connecticut in 2001. God of War, nothing but God of War since then. I think that's criminal for a team that talented. So if they could I wanted to see them make something like The Getaway. I think that would be dope as shit to see, their version of The Getaway. But whenever the rumor was like, Jason Schreier was saying it's going to be an IP that PlayStation owns, but it's going to be a totally different spin on it than you've ever thought of, I was like, oh shit, something like The Getaway or The Order. Could they make a new Order game? But I guess a totally new spin on God of War. Sure. All right, and next up here we have Tim Despair Bear. Says, I only want discs. Nothing else will make me happy. The PlayStation 6 could play games at 1,000,000 frames per second and 100K resolution, sold at $99, but it would mean nothing to me if there's no disc. And yeah, man, I don't feel that strongly, but I feel similarly. And they're still getting ate alive in all of their comment sections on Twitter and on, in every YouTube comment section. It's the same thing in all of them. Everybody is pissed about this. So they haven't responded whatsoever yet. And I'm curious if they're going to at all. I'm curious, like, are they going to do an interview at some point explaining this or trying to justify it? Or are they just going to kind of keep posting through it? I don't know, but I'd be curious. But it doesn't matter which video you go to, it's people saying the same thing: no disc, no deal. Which, you know, remains to be seen in terms of their console sales next generation, or if it affects their bottom line whatsoever. But even in this Wolverine trailer that they put out today, which, to be fair, this trailer is fucking fire. But even in this, for a massive video game, a a game or a trailer that already has close to 200,000 views in a couple hours, it's people being like, yeah, I can't wait to buy a physical copy for this. And I'm in the same boat. I'll be there. I'll definitely check it out. I'll pick it up and I'll be buying a physical copy for it. But, you know, everybody is in a different camp with this. You know what I mean? Everybody feels slightly different. And the range of emotion, it varies from person to person. I am beyond furious about this. I think it is very monopolistic at this point to do it. When, if they were to do it at the start of the generation, that'd be one thing. You know, at the start of the PlayStation 5 generation, when there was like still some hope that Xbox could come back. But at this point, Xbox, like an analyst predicted recently, that the Helix is only going to sell like 2 million units in the first year on the market. So PlayStation is going to be the only premier option for if you want to play like third-party games on PlayStation. You are, or if you want to play third-party games in general on console, you're likely going to buy a PlayStation. And so it feels like what they want to do more than anything right now is to be the de facto digital storefront in the console space and not have to split shares with anyone whatsoever, other than, you know, the like for first party games, to not split shares with anyone at all, and that full $70 goes straight to Sony. And with their third party partners, they'll make more money on those deals as well. So it's just, you can't necessarily call it a monopoly, obviously, because there are other console options out there, and that's what they're banking on in terms of regulation. Like, in terms of regulation, you can't necessarily say, oh, well, I remember there was someone, a higher up at the EU, was talking about, we can't really make them, you know, publish physical video games. We can't force them to continue producing these physical discs if they choose not to, because there are other places you can buy these games. But I don't know. It just feels, it feels shitty. It definitely feels shitty across the board. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see the year one. Of course, when PS6 comes out, it will sell out. They're going to have limited supply of those devices. You know what I mean? They don't want to lock in a they don't want to lock in deals for 30 million PlayStation 6 consoles, and then in 2029, 2030, the AI bubble pops and the price to manufacture these consoles is drastically reduced, and then they're met with a position of, oh, well, we already signed a deal for 30 million of them, and we got these things just sitting in warehouses. Like, they don't want to do that. So they're going to go the route of, you know, the scarcity mindset of, you're not going, it's going to be difficult for you to get your hands on them. The FOMO is going to be through the roof, and I assume they're going to have a couple exclusive games to try to buy you in on day one. But it's yeah, long term is going to be the thing, because keep in mind, PlayStation 3 sold out day one, and PlayStation 3 almost killed PlayStation in the long term. So it's going to depend on if they can get this thing out to 100 million users in 6-7 years. I don't think they're going to be able to do that at $1,000 and killing one of the only parts of, like, when you look at the PC to console comparison, of course, console is still going to be cheaper just due to the economy of scale that PlayStation has over Asus or over any, PC hardware manufacturer out there. You're just, they know they're going to sell tens of millions. Even in a worst case scenario, the PS6 will sell 50, 60 million units, but Asus would kill to have something like that. But that would kill PlayStation. If PlayStation only sells 50, 60 million PlayStation 6 consoles, they're going to be in real fucking trouble. Real trouble. So, interesting times. Without a doubt, interesting times. All right, and next up we have Hollowed Claret, and they say we need legal consumer protections for digital purchases because many people seem to be supporting that format more and more. I would like to continue to have a choice regarding digital or physical, however. Yeah, we probably do need to talk about that a little bit more because in this conversation, it feels as if you can only support one thing, which I find a bit ridiculous. Um, I definitely understand right now why everybody is going crazy about them killing physical video game production because that's the thing we should be on them about right now and trying to get them to reverse that now. But long term, we should be thinking about the rights that we have in terms of our digital library as well. And like, it's nuts that you cannot refund games on PlayStation once you start playing them. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. It's nuts that you can't legally give your kid your digital library once you pass away. These things are insane. You should have legal rights of actual ownership over something you spend $70 on. I think there should be ways of looking into a secondhand digital market as well. And I don't know how you necessarily go about creating that marketplace because PlayStation sure as shit doesn't want to, and Steam sure as shit doesn't want to, and nobody wants to. But at the same time, it's like, man, if you are, let's say unintentionally, but intentionally, allegedly, assumedly, killing off the secondhand market with this move to end physical video game production in 2028, the secondhand market is going to diminish to nothing in terms of new releases. So if that's the case, then why can't players create that market for themselves? And at the very least, because I think I talked about this in a recent video. I'm sorry. I've talked about a lot of my feelings on PlayStation as of late because I have a lot of them. It's completely infuriating to me that they're making this move. But I believe in a recent video I told you guys that I bought a copy of Black Flag and I was like, cool, I want to get into Black Flag. I want to really try this out. And I played it for 4 or 5 hours and I bought it physically. And I'm going to take the game back because it's just like, the narrative just really isn't hooking me. It's a cool game. Like, I like it. It's dope. There's some cool technical, like I talked about earlier, the shit they're doing with the wave technology and the tornadoes spawning in the water. Like, that's some dope ass shit. But it's like, I've been here. I've done this. The story's not really grabbing me. I'm going to take it back to GameStop. Cool. I get to do that because I own a physical copy. And sure, I'll take a little bit of a hit. That's all I'm asking for in the digital secondhand market as well. I'm not saying that I don't want to sell these games for $70 back to someone after I've played it, but why can't I sell it for 45? You know what I mean? Half price, 35, something. Like, there should be some way of being like, yo, I've played it for 4 or 5 hours. I don't really like it. Why can't I just get a little bit of my money back on it? There's so many elements of this and so many reasons why not to, I'll say this. Colin Moriarty is incredible at what he does and is super fucking intelligent in terms of discussing PlayStation, understanding that ecosystem better than probably any other content creator in the world. So all praise there. But at the same time, I heard him recently on a podcast. He said something to the effect of, when talking about these digital libraries being passed down, he said something to the effect of, and it was just the wildest statement to me. He said, damn, what was it? He said, talking about legal protection that we need to have for our digital product, he said something like, yeah, and it's going to be so much better for your kid to get your digital library when you pass away than your physical library. That way they don't have to deal with all that shit. And I'm like, yo, you can't sell it. What if your kid doesn't give a shit about video games? One day, if I have a kid and I pass all of this shit down to them, I'm gonna hope to God they sell it and use it as a down payment on a house, buy a car, something. Like, we need the tangible aspect of the physical product that you can legally. That's the thing. You cannot legally, when everybody says, oh, well, why don't you just go to PC and download all your games from GOG? I'm like, dude, it's a full-blown felony to sell those games. I don't want it. It's the secondhand market. It's the ability to resell something that I buy. That is very, very important to me. If I have kids one day, that they can sell these games off. I don't want them hanging on to this shit. There's this weird thing when people have like this ideal. Here we go, boy. People have this like ideal view that everyone you love is going to cherish the same things you cherish. And it's like, that's not reality. If I give my games to my kid and they don't give a shit about games, sell those fucking games and put the money towards something you do give a shit about. That's what I want more than anything. It's not like, it's great if we can get to a point where we have actual protection and ownership over our digital goods, but it's not the same thing. If I can pass down that digital library to my son or daughter who doesn't give a fuck about video games, they're just left with these products that they can't do anything with and they can't get any money from. I don't know. There's a lot of benefits to physical media, and I'm not sitting here and trying to say that you're wrong. You are 100% right. We need to figure this the fuck out in terms of our digital purchases and having real ownership over them, at least to some degree. At the very least, that refund button should be right there on PlayStation. Track it 2 hours, just like Steam. No questions asked. Hit that refund button, get your money back. That should be the bare minimum. So I agree with you on that. But at the same time, I'm glad to see people are pushing back specifically in regards to physical media right now. And then let's get to digital media. If PlayStation just does not reverse course on this whatsoever, then let's focus on making sure that we have our digital rights and are actually allowed real ownership of the things we buy digitally. And also, it's not to say that you can't do both at the same time. And once again, I will shout out Colin Moriarty on that, where he wrote to a congressman, and I think he's going to have a congressman on Sacred Symbols Plus, or he's about to meet with him or something like that, to have like a in-depth discussion about the future of digital media in general and about, how shitty it is because his account was stolen on PlayStation and people are selling these accounts. They're fucking going in and finding accounts who have thousands of digital games purchased and they're selling them illegally, and PlayStation isn't doing shit about it. So all of that shit needs to be fixed immediately before we get to this all digital future. So I certainly agree with you without a doubt on that. And next up here we have Ping Malinga. Sounds like a wrestling name. It says, fire all current decision makers, bring back Blu-ray drive options built in for next gen, stop trying to make everything a subscription, look at your past success, not a future that we reject. I will say I find it just baffling that Herman Hulst still has a job with PlayStation because if reports are to be believed, he was one of the main decision makers behind Concord and one of the main decision makers behind Horizon Hunters Gathering, and like thinking that those were good directions for PlayStation. And like, I know Jim Ryan, I am still willing to give Herman Holst a little bit of room to breathe, because I think that the vast majority of the live service debacle lies at the feet of Jim Ryan. But it's just hard to, at this point, Herman Holst has been in charge for what, 3 years, something like that. It's hard to sit here 3 years later and be like, yeah, dude, you've been making the right moves, because at the very least you think we would see some of this stuff at showcases or at state of plays. And I don't really feel great about the future of PlayStation's first party output. Like, what on the horizon? Because let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that everything up to 2025 that released was a Jim Ryan creation or a Jim Ryan greenlight. Well, okay, cool. But what in 2027, 2028, 2029 and beyond are we looking at with just unbelievable anticipation? Intergalactic, and at best people are split on Lao Fei. I guess I can only speak for myself, but like, I'm only excited for Intergalactic. I'll play Lao Fei probably, but like, I don't need any more God of War whatsoever. And so Until Dawn 2, I am excited for Until Dawn 2, but it just seems like a very safe PlayStation right now, with decision makers who are not risk takers. And I think you have to have a little bit of that renegade spirit, a little bit of that, like, oh, I see what the fucking future is going to be. I like having some vision, even if it falls flat on its face. That's one thing I will give Phil Spencer with Game Pass. Like, that was a real bold Hail Mary play, and it failed catastrophically, but it was risky, it was bold, it was unique, he was really going for something there. It doesn't feel like Herman Holst and what is his name, Hiroki Totoki, it doesn't feel like they are green lighting bold, innovative, unique, fresh IP. It's like, okay, more of this. Insomniac, more Marvel. Sony Santa Monica, more God of War. And yeah, so I know we still have a little bit of time. Thankfully, Intergalactic is fresh, brand new. So I'm excited for that. But I don't really feel a lot of excitement for the brand overall right now. And sure, I'm obviously very negative right now because of the killing of physical video games in 2028. But there are other things that have just been kind of frustrating me throughout the generation. I've talked about it multiple times on the channel, so I apologize for the redundancy. But yeah, I agree. There probably should be some fresh blood and new leadership coming in with a new vision for PlayStation. But you do say here, stop trying to make everything a subscription. That part I don't really know. What are they trying to make a subscription? I might be missing something if they announced something recently. I don't keep up as much with everything that they have done as of late, but I think all they have is like PlayStation Plus, if I'm not mistaken. At least that's all I'm aware of. And yeah, I think they've actually done a really good job with their subscription service, if I'm being honest. I think that they could do a lot better with the like retro catalog for their subscription service. I think they've been dropping the ball on that, but I think that they've done a good job of not over relying on the subscription service model in comparison to, like, once again, in comparison to Game Pass. But yeah, hit me in the comments. I might be missing something on that, unless you're talking about like online, which yeah, gonna be in an interesting spot for sure, when especially with Helix, if it's going to be a PC essentially. Are they going to have online requirements, like mandatory payment for playing online multiplayer? That's going to be interesting. And then if Xbox drops that, will PlayStation have to follow suit? I probably not, but I would be very, that'd be dope. And then it says, look at your past success, not a future that we reject. I symbolically agree with this, but not quite literally. I think that back to that point of I don't want to see a future of PlayStation where it's like, and now here's Resistance and Sly and Infamous and all of the games from PlayStation's past that you loved back in the day. We're going to try to make you love them again. It's like, I some of that for sure, but we got to find the balance. It can't just continue to be catering to our nostalgia. It's I want to see them push the envelope technically, narratively, mechanically, all of those things. It's like you are a first party studio with resources galore. Use that shit. Use it to, but it's once again, I'm putting the blame when I speak like that at the feet of the studio, and it's really at the feet of the leadership to like encourage creativity and foster a you know a workplace culture where you are rewarded for making bold, weird, new shit, and not necessarily having everything be a okay, this needs to sell 40 million copies. It's like I don't really know if that's like that's obviously not sustainable. It's sustainable for some studios, definitely, but you do need, like we talked about earlier, you do need your house marks and you do need your media molecules and your team Asobis. Like Astrobot doesn't sell, it doesn't move the needle commercially, but you need those critical darlings and those studios who are able to take risks on a lower budget so that it can make your portfolio overall feel more just varied. So yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said here, other than the stop trying to make everything a subscription. Once again, but I might be missing something on that. I haven't honestly, if I'm being real, since PlayStation announced that they were killing physical video games, I've kind of been out of the loop with everything. I just have had an overall I don't know, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but I've kind of felt just this overall sense of disgust for the entire hobby, if I'm being completely real with you guys. But I don't want to lean too much into that feeling. David says if they commit to digital, then they have to adopt the range and flexibility that Steam has when it comes to their sales. They have publisher sales and prices come down a lot sooner. So yeah, just once again talking about the digital ecosystem, but from a different angle, more so talking about like having these sales that are more frequent and games dropping in price quite a bit quicker. I do know that the publishers control their price, but it might just be the thing where it's more competitive on PC, and you have an environment where publishers are they're aware that these sales are happening nonstop and players are not buying games at full price as much, so they're dropping the prices quite a bit quicker. And so yeah, once again, just having more storefronts, having more options to have like the spring winter sale and then the free games on Epic and all of that shit. There's just much more variety there. And next up we have Nicholas, who says they just need to be better at protecting players' accounts, and they need to start a policy that states that every digital game you purchase will be owning instead of licensing. Yeah, we hit on that. I completely agree with that. And then we have, is that the same? No, different user, just kind of similar profile. AMJ, who says, I'm about ready to sell my PS5 even though I got it very recently during last year's holiday sale. The physical disc discontinuation has just completely killed my desire to keep going, and in some sense killed my desire for gaming as a whole. I don't know, dude. I fucking feel you, buddy. I feel you. I hate to doom and gloom. I really do. I that's something that I don't know if I don't know if people know this. I think everyone in my real life who watches my channel, which isn't a lot of people. I've maybe only told like 5-6 people in my entire, friend group that I even have a YouTube channel. It's not really something I put out there, but I think that everyone who watches my channel who knows me would say I'm a lot more positive on here than I am in real life. I'm a little bit, I mean, I'm not like the dude who's fucking, full blown nihilism that's going to ruin the mood at a party or anything like that. But I just generally am a bit more nihilistic in general, I would say, about things. Like, I don't necessarily have a bubbly personality, or like I've had people in the comments before be like, yo, give us some energy, and it's hey, welcome guys, welcome to the YouTube channel. It's like that whole culture that was created about YouTubers just screaming at the camera. Like, I can't fucking do that, bro. I'm 30 years old, but I understand that that's kind of commonplace on YouTube, but it's like that balance, right? Where I do genuinely try to be, I don't ever try to be that, but I try to be positive. I try to look at what is great about gaming as a whole, because it's a hobby that is supposed to bring us joy. And there's so much to be joyful for, and so much to look forward to. And like, there's so many great things about the industry right now. And then you have these moments where it's like 3,200 people laid off, killing physical video game production, stripping away your consumer rights, layoffs. This, like, these things just start fucking piling up. Studio closure. And you're like, damn, you feel this overwhelming sense of dread towards the industry. And it's like, are we really about to have, we're never going to have a crash like 1983. Where we're never gonna have that crash where like ET comes out, and it was just, games were shitty at the time. And the problem was like, right now it's almost the opposite problem, where at that point there were not enough great games to support the industry. Now it's like there's too many good games that you don't know what to support. You don't have the time or money to support it. And then the treatment of the consumer from some of these publishers is at an all-time low. And then you have publishers and developers who are just like creating games at an all-time high, games better than they've ever been before, and a more consistent cadence of release than we've ever gotten before. And it's like, oh my God, it's a buffet. There's so much to eat. You can't even, like, you're going to get full before you get 25% through the most anticipated games of August. You know what I mean? Not even talking about the entire year. You could just play games that come out in August and have the next 12 months stacked up for you. There's too much to play. And then it's like that counterbalance with just how bad everything else is, how bad the business side of this industry is. And it's such a bummer, because the developers and publishers are doing great fucking work, but these goddamn, when you're so beholden to shareholders to such a degree that like you're looking to squeeze your consumer at every single fucking, at every angle, and it just, you start sucking the soul out of gaming. So yeah, man, I do feel you. I definitely, my desire for continuing to play games at the rate that I have in the last, like, really my entire life is definitely slowly diminishing, for sure. Justin Plays 105 writes in and says, number one, physical media. Number two, at a minimum, make the PS6 backwards compatible with PS4 and PS5. Damn, yeah, that's something. What are they going to do there with your people who have bought PS4 and PS5 physical copies for the last fucking 20 years? Like, goodness gracious, man. Are they going to say that my entire library behind me is just like null and void and I can't play my PS4 or PS5 games? If that's the case, dude, like, yeah. At some point you just have to laugh. It's like so evil corporation fucking with the big mustache that's all twisted up. Like, it's almost comical how it is like big business, evil fucking fat dude sitting there in the suit with the belly hanging out, sitting on piles of gold coins. Like, at a certain point it does get comical how evil these corporations behave. It's like a fucking A, man. Number three, make more big game series. Tired of one game a generation. Red Dead, God of War, GTA, The Last of Us, etc. Yes, I mean they don't have anything to do with Red Dead or GTA, but God of War and The Last of Us they do own, and yeah, uh, I mean, I will say with Naughty Dog, it's unfortunate because like it once again comes down to bad management and bad, you know, first party studio leadership to, or I should say, like, who's in charge, the president of first party, which I think was Herman Holst at the time, to greenlight The Last of Us online. And, like, not understanding that Naughty Dog doesn't necessarily have the support or the resources to maintain a live service game long term. That's something that should have been clearly communicated and discussed before they got 4 years into development. Because, by all accounts, the Last of Us factions, or factions 2, Tlu Online, whatever you want to call it, supposedly it was close to launch whenever they ended up canceling it. You have to be having these discussions years in advance about, like, hey, do y'all think you really have the resources to support this thing long term? Do you really want to become a live service studio? These are questions that should be like the first 20 minutes of the conversation, not 4 years into development. And so Intergalactic would have already come out by now. You know what I mean? Intergalactic would have already come out by now if they moved straight from Tlu 2 to Intergalactic, opposed to going from Tlu 2 to The Last of Us Factions. And so now we'd be sitting in a world where Intergalactic came out in 2023 or 2024, let's say 2024, and then we would finish off the generation with Uncharted 5 or The Last of Us 3 or maybe even a new IP or whatever the case may be, whatever they were incubating while Intergalactic was finishing up. Or, maybe they have two teams. I think the rumor right now is that Naughty Dog has two teams, one working on Intergalactic and one working on Uncharted 5. I have no idea if that's true. It could be Sony Ben working on Uncharted 5 or a spin-off Uncharted game. I have no idea. But yeah, we should have gotten to Naughty Dog games this generation. We are going to get to Sony Santa Monica games this generation. Unfortunately, one of them is God of War Laufey, though. And next up on the chopping block here, we have Blitzball for Life 823. And they say, I wish I could say that I'm excited about the new console, but I'm not. The only thing that could make me want to get one would be an announcement that is fully compatible with all previous generations of consoles for physical games for PlayStation 1 through 5, I guess 1 through 6. A disk drive that comes with it, the full games are on disk, and there is no need for an internet connection. I realize that won't happen, but that'll be the only reason I would get one. Instead, I'm going through playing a lot of older games on my PS2 as well as later ported games on Switch. I'm playing through Divinity Original Sin 2 on Switch, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's when thinking about like the reasons to buy that console, I find myself in a similar boat to you guys where it's like I try to really internalize or figure out what is the selling point. Now, for me, it's always the games. It'll always be the games. And I've never lied, I will never lie about the fact that I can absolutely be swayed to purchase a PlayStation 6 if you're talking about Uncharted 5, my second favorite video game franchise, third favorite video game franchise of all time, sitting right there with a new entry for the first time in 10 years, and it's only on PlayStation 6. Yeah, that'll sway me. There's things that can sway me. I assume they'll have Silent Hill 1 as like a launch window exclusive. I assume they'll be working with a lot of third parties to have exclusives because they're aware that like that's going to be something they need to sell these things. So I don't want to put myself in a position to where I say I'm never going to buy one of these things because I'm bad with FOMO. I'm really bad with FOMO. And, there was this question posed in I believe it was from Retro Ghetto, who is a great, collection related YouTuber. And he posed this question years ago talking about, are you a gamer or a collector? And it was like a big video response that a lot of people took to. And that it was one of those moments where I realized I was like, oh yeah, I love collecting, but I really love gaming, because like one of the questions was if collecting was no longer an option, like if you had to do this all digitally, would you continue moving forward with games, or would you like go back and just play your back catalog? And while my backlog is endless and I'll die with a backlog, but I want to play that new shit, man. I really do. I'll never miss out on Red Dead 3. I'll never miss out on Grand Theft Auto 7. I'll never miss out on The Witcher 4 or Cyberpunk 2 or, on down the line, Resident Evil 10, 11, 12. Like, I can't, man. Like, I love this hobby to a irrational degree. I drive down the road for work. I'm fucking driving nonstop for work. And I swear to God, like sometimes I just think about, like, I'll sit there and just think about when we see a trailer for The Witcher 4 gameplay and like what that could look like. And my brain just starts spinning in all these different directions of the possibilities, or, the trailer, that next intergalactic trailer that shows gameplay, or when we finally see the debut trailer for the X-Men game, what that's going to look like. What are the possibilities there? Fallout New Vegas 2, I've been thinking about recently, and I love trailers. I love trailers. That's actually something I don't talk about a lot on the channel, is I often will just go back and rewatch old trailers and be like, oh, well, okay, that's kind of changed a little bit. That never materialized in game. And I wonder if they're going for that in the first game, but then they kind of built on it more in the sequel. And so like, I'm weird about trailers. I love trailers. And it's something that gets me so fucking excited to, it's one of the few things, right, where as you get older, you don't really like, at Christmas or for your birthday or whatever the case may be, like you've already bought the thing you wanted. You know what I mean? That's the whole point of growing up and working and making your own money, is so you can just buy what the fuck you want to buy, right? And so those things don't really exist, of those moments that just are pure bliss. And for me, one of the closest things to that is these showcases, because you don't know what to expect. So every new trailer, it almost feels like you're opening up a new present for the first time. It's like, holy shit, what could be inside? It's one last thing at the Game Awards. What could be inside that box? And it's like it's one of the only times I feel that as an adult, of just like pure bliss that's unconnected from anything. It's not a tangible thing whatsoever in that moment. It's just pure joy, excitement, and hype. And yeah, sometimes you open the box and you're like, oh, High Guard? Damn, you gave me a box of rocks for Christmas. But no shade on High Guard. I don't. I'm sure those developers worked hard, but it was just an awful one last thing. But the whole point of it is to say, like, I love gaming. I love playing games so much. But to go back, the announcement of PlayStation killing physical video games, it did make me realize that how much of a collector I really am, though, because it was such a shot to the gut, where I really did start considering, like, do I just give this up entirely? And then the more I think about it, it's like, bro, you're never going to miss out on Resident Evil 11 or Code Veronica remake or whatever you're never going to miss out on that shit. Don't even fucking try to lie to yourself. But the collecting aspect is a major part of it. But yeah, to your question, or to your submission here, talking about full backwards compatibility, that's something as well that it's a shame to me that you would think there's no chance they ever even entertain stuff like this anymore, with them eliminating physical video game production in 2028, because they are trying to kill off the entire idea of physical media. You know what I mean? They don't want you to even think about physical discs. So it almost, in a way, maybe I had irrational hope, but for a while I was like, damn, I wonder if one of these companies at some point will do that and launch a $1,500, $2,000 really expensive machine for you to be able to play your full back catalog, your physical back catalog, on a PlayStation 6 or 7 or whatever the case, or Xbox whatever the hell the name's going to be for the Xbox. But with them moving further and further away from it, it's like, damn, my hopes of that are even kind of going out the window. So yeah, I feel you. It's definitely for me, and I assume for a lot of you guys, the hype is really, really low right now for PS6. But once again, to be very, very, very fair and very transparent, I I can get hyped. All I need, back to that point of a couple trailers, and I'm like, God damn it. And so, yeah, I don't ever want to lie to you guys. I have awful FOMO. I'm trying to work on it though. And next up here, we have a question from William Smith, who says refunds for digital games like Microsoft, at least one per year instead of zero per year. I didn't know that was how it worked with Xbox. I didn't know you could get one per year. I don't know if I've ever tried to refund anything on Xbox. And they say actually add games at a reasonable pace to their tiny back compat list in the store. I swear it's the same handful of games that's been there for years. Let us purchase any game in the classic catalog independently of the PlayStation service. Why can we buy some but not... Oh, shit, my bad. Why can we buy some but not others? Yeah, that is really, really weird how you can buy some but not. I think a lot of them are Capcom games that launch like that, where you can only subscribe to PlayStation Plus to get Dino Crisis or Resident Evil. But I think they have been fixing that to where you can go in and actually buy those games a la carte now. But yeah, they definitely need to. It's like 1 or 2 games a month for their premium service, for their retro service. It's like, bro, you can't call it a premium service for your subscription and only add 1 retro game a month. So yeah, I completely agree with that. Captain Corndog writes in and says, the bare minimum that would get me to consider a PS6 would be an optional disc drive and some form of disc, even if they cost more, came out after digital. It cost more / came out after digital. No option for my PS5 or PS4 discs is killing my interest in the PS6. I had pretty low interest anyway with my backlog, and I'm not itching for any more power. If graphics capped out at PS5 level, I wouldn't care. There's a lot there, man. And once again, thank you for the support. A year of being a member. Thank you so much, Captain Corndog. The bare minimum. Yeah, so you saying the thing of even if the digital, if the physical version costs more than the digital, that's still that's something I've been trying to preach, man. And it upset some people in the comments when I said it, which I do understand, but at the same time I also understand, like, I think that we do have to be realistic with our position in the market. And at times whenever it's like back against the wall, the stats are right there in front of your face, and sure, they're manipulating and skewing the data without a doubt. But when that's the data they're trying to present you with, and it's on us in a lot of ways as well. I'm not a fan of this whole idea of, like, every time someone has a problem with a corporation, you have the bootlickers who are like, well, you shouldn't have went and bought you're not ready for retirement. It's not the fact that rent prices are fucking through the roof and it costs a fucking arm and a leg just to put food on the table. It's because you're going to Starbucks and getting a coffee. That's why you're broke. It's the Starbucks coffee. It's not the fact that inflation is out of this world and rent prices are out of this world and the average car payment is $700. It's like, no, we're going to put everything back on the working class person to make them feel shitty about every little decision they make in their life to bring them some joy. And so I hate that so fucking much. I hate that attitude so much. I hate that bitch ass corporate bootlicking bullshit. But at the same time, I will say this. In regards to physical media and the elimination of it, they wouldn't be doing it if we were buying it at the rate we should have been all along. And we valued convenience over ownership. And we did it in droves. Millions upon millions, tens of millions of people switched to an all digital ecosystem. And it's It's fucking crazy. It's crazy. And I get bummed out for sure whenever I see comments of people, who are like, get with the times, old man. It's like, guys, y'all don't know how much you're relinquishing by giving this up. But you made your decision, and the masses made their decision. And so instead of me coming in here with this, like, this hopelessly optimistic mindset of PlayStation is going to reverse course and they're going to keep that manufacturing plant around for physical media at the same rate that they have had it working and operating for the last couple decades, and they are going to keep charging us the same price that they charge for their digital product. It's like, it's just, I wish, man, I fucking wish. My thing is like, okay, let's start to do math and let's start to make let's make this make sense. Because if you are making $70 for every game you sell digitally, you're not having to, split any of the earnings with GameStop or Best Buy or the manufacturing plant or the, to ship the product, or like, you're not, it's just straight through your storefront. And so you're wanting to cut the physical side of it off because you're making $45 instead of 70 for your first party games whenever you factor in all the splits. So for me, it's like, okay, well, how do we make up the other, $25? And if the answer is we have to pay an additional $25, it's like, I'll take it, dude. I know people don't want to hear that. I know people don't want to hear $100 video games for physical media to stick around. But I just want to hear that there's a way that physical media can stick around. And if it has to be a boutique, enthusiast market, then I would rather it be there than just total elimination of it. To some degree, I would rather have the option. We buy it straight from PlayStation. They're no longer having to split with GameStop and Best Buy, and whatever the case may be. If there's some option, I will fucking take it every day, all day, twice on Sunday. And they, like, print a fucking manual in the box. Put a couple stickers in there. Just something to make it feel like, once again, that there's some soul. Like, if we're buying $100 thing, just do something to make it feel like, oh, cool, we got a sticker. Fucking A. Oh, boy. We got a sticker for $100, guys. But to your point about the power thing as well, I completely agree on that. Like, if graphics capped out PS5 level, sure, dude. Well, why are we continuing? Like, what do we need, man? I've seen every fucking pore on Aloy's face that's possible. Aloy has more pores on her face than I do on mine. It's like, she's more realistic than I am. She's more human than me. Xman77B writes in, and I believe this is Vin, if I'm not mistaken. Once again, shout out to Vin for supporting through the YouTube membership program as well, or Patreon or whatever. Says, I wouldn't have them change anything. It's personal now. My only interest regarding Sony is seeing them transform into the 2026 version of Atari. I have my backlog. This is one of those things where I see this brought up all the time in the comments of people being like, yo, I got my backlog. I mean, Captain Corndog hit on something similar, and I think another comment earlier hit on something similar. And a lot of the comments that I'm seeing in the YouTube videos, there's too many to respond to, which I do apologize. I try my damnedest to respond to every single comment, but this is a topic that you guys, are super passionate about as well. And, I try my best to, at the very least, read through all of the comments. And something that I'm seeing in that thread of comments often is like, yo, I got decades worth of games to play. You're trying to sell me a $2,000 machine, $1,500 machine, $1,000 machine, whatever, double the cost we have to assume at the very least, compared to any other PlayStation console we've ever bought in our life at launch. And you double the cost, stripping away our consumer rights, locking us into your digital storefront. You've already tested the water with, varied pricing options depending on consumer behavior patterns on your platform. So you're nickel and diming people who are your loyal customers who tend to buy things at full price, and you're, continuing to mark down products that are are less likely to be bought by that customer who is surfing through your storefront. And doing that more and more throughout the future when we don't have a secondhand market whatsoever. Like, yeah, you worry about these predatory practices, and when you have, a 40-year history of collecting video games and all these consoles, and like, there, dude, I mean, I've probably played 60-70%, maybe a little bit more than that, of the games I own. I'm good too, dude. I don't need to buy this thing. I could play video games for the rest of my life without ever playing another PlayStation game. I'm not going to do that, most likely. Once again, as soon as I see the trailer for Resident Evil 10, I'll have to, hopefully it'll come to Switch 2, and I can just grab the damn key card and play it on Switch 2 and sit there and look at, 720p and 20 frames per second, locked at a solid 12 frames per second, looking at Leon's hair look like fucking spaghetti noodles. And but at the same time, it's like I do think that PlayStation is undermining or underestimating the fact that nobody is lacking for games. It's the same problem that we talked about earlier. The crash of 83, there weren't enough good games to support the industry. Now there are too many good games. You can, if you were to buy every game you wanted to play in 2026 and just stop buying games after this year, to finish every game you wanted to play just in 2026, if you're working a full-time job and, lightly social and, have another hobby, like you could go 3-4 years just playing 2026 games. And then you stack that 2025 was loaded as well. 2023 was loaded as well. 2022, 2020. Like, it's just, yeah, man, we're eating good on the software side, but that backlog just builds more and more for myself and everyone else every single day. So my advice would be for people in this position who are like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to buy a PlayStation 6. Just keep stacking those PS5 physical games until 2028 and just stick with your PS5, man. A great machine. DRM free, the base PS5. Fucking killer machine. I wouldn't let go of that thing. Even for people out there who are looking to buy a PlayStation 6, I wouldn't sell the PS5, the base PS5. I'm probably going to sell my PS5 Pro to get a PlayStation 6 or a Helix or Switch 3 or whatever direction I end up going. I'm probably going to end up getting all of them. Once again, I'm a fucking idiot. Got to be honest about that. But, it's... keep that PS5, that base PS5, keep that machine. It's an all-time great console. The hardware, the base PlayStation 5 hardware is an all-time great console. So just load that thing up, buy a bunch of physical games, and honestly, 2027 and 2026 alone, you'll be covered for the next decade just with those 2 years, because 2027 is not looking light either. All right, and next up we have Kieran. I think I got your name right. He told me it was the same as the Red Dead Redemption 2 character. We have Kieran who says, don't make the same mistake that Xbox made 15 years ago. And that's the wild thing, right? Like, it is literally the exact same core mistake that Xbox made in 2020 or in 2013 when they were trying to restrict your rights as a consumer and not allow you to resell the games, not allow you to share the games. And we're very early on with their attempt to kill the secondhand market. And like, I think that history repeats itself. The hubris and arrogance from one company after, I mean, PlayStation is the back to back, just, I mean, utter dominance over their competitor. Like, really, really, just bloodbath after bloodbath for over a decade. You know what I mean? Like, it they are once again to talking about the comically evil corporation, they are big corporate villain energy right now. And they think they can do no wrong, and they think that their audience is captured, and they've built their library up for 15 years, and they think they can't go nowhere and that there are no other options. And I think they're wrong. I do, man. I don't think you can treat your fan base like these disposable products and expect them to just, and it's not to say, I've talked about this as well. It's not to say that you need to run a business and you need to make business decisions, but you also need to understand that the fans are the first line of, whenever you announce a PlayStation 6, it's not going to be the Call of Duty guys and the Fortnite guys and the Minecraft guys who get super excited for it. It's going to be the guy who sees the trailer for Stray 2 and the guy who sees the trailer for Roller Drome 2, Tales of Arise 2 that's exclusive to your console. And you're going to be, the hardcore fan is going to be the person driving the conversation. There is a very clear distinction between consumer and fan, and both have to be served. No doubt about it. But you can't just run business off of spreadsheets. You can't do the thing where you say, oh, well, 95% of our users watch Netflix every day on Xbox 360, so we're going to design the Xbox One to be a fucking cable box more so than a video game box. It's like, well, we have options for cable. You fucking dork. What are you doing? You are a video game console. And it's also something in the world of console gaming. I keep coming back to this word soul. Just keeps repeating over and over in my head. And I think soul is one of the key things that console gaming has over PC, where PC gaming isn't really a part of culture. You know what I mean? Console gaming is a part of culture. It is the big E3 moments where you have PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox competing for your attention, for your money, funding big new games, the midnight launches at GameStop. Like, there's so many things about console gaming that you are going to associate with, like, real moments with real people and experiencing, like, this connected energy that is being driven through the medium, being driven through the hobby, like real in-person tangible shit. You went into the store, you bought the Mountain Dew Code Red, and it had Halo, it had fucking Master Chief on the bottle. And I think that the more that console gaming turns into PC and loses its soul and identity, which I do think physical media is like one of the key things where we've talked about this as well. It's like, guys, what the fuck are you doing? It's one of the only real benefits of buying a console over a computer other than price. And yeah, I just, like, how far into this do we go? You know, like, do we not have, because PlayStation already feels such little pressure that they don't have showcases anymore. It's like everything's a state of play, so the stakes are just so much lower. You know what I mean? Xbox is like they're killing off all their studios and shit. It's like, do they even have enough games for a showcase? What are they going to showcase? They still got to lay off another 1,600 people. So Compulsion, Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Arkane, all studios that are no longer under the Xbox umbrella. And then you couple that with all the layoffs from the past couple years and studio closures. It's like, when do you guys no longer have the games to show? And what happens if you do skip out on years where you don't have a showcase? And then is PlayStation like, okay, well, we're not going to do this every year anymore either. And so I hate to keep going back to the same word, but it's the only word that makes sense in terms of what I'm talking about here is soul. And when you slowly just squeeze it and strip the soul from the console market, you just, even myself, I hate the idea of buying a PC. But even myself, I'm like, yo, at what point do I just say fuck it? And tweak and twerk and grab my screwdrivers and my helmet and, experience the master race. But yeah, I don't know. I really want to hammer that home in the sense of like, when you walk into stores, you see Nintendo products and like, I don't know, that there's something special about having an actual culture, like an in-person culture where you feel something as a human, not just like sitting in front of a screen and like surfing digital storefronts. And it's like, that's your only interaction with anything from this hobby. It's like this disconnected shell of humanity. It's depressing as fuck. HD GameTube TV says, announced that they made a mistake and will instead keep physical media going forward. I want to stop on that real quick. I know I'm running really, really long, but I want to talk about that. That's, just hypothetically speaking, what do you do? What do you say? If they are to go back on it, like, how do you do that? Is it just as simple as like another blog post? Yeah. And once again, even in this scenario where it's like a best case scenario, it's still going to be a soulless fucking, like, they're not going to come out on stage. And because a part of me is like, that would kind of be sick. That would kind of be sick as shit to have a public apology where Herman Holst, or I believe it was, Sid Schumann, I think, was the person who wrote the blog post about killing the physical video game market. And like, it would be somewhat wild. And once again, to the culture of like this larger experience of that's the thing that is appealing about a lot of the console space, in my opinion, is that like there are faces and names and people attached to these decisions, and at times they have to the Xbox, as unfortunate as it was, the Xbox Roundtable event where they had that podcast and they were like, yo, we got to figure out what the fuck we're doing here. And then Asha Sharma lately, where she's like, yo, some decisions were made before I came here that are undoing this business. And like, you say, oh damn, these things are fucking happening and shit's going on, and this is like big business happening in front of our eyes. That's really appealing shit. And so there could be a very wild angle of like, in a perfect world, you don't want to over glamorize, but there could be a dope scenario where someone walks out on stage for a showcase, and I know it's a digital presentation now, even more, just stripping the soul out of it, but at least it's a human speaking in this scenario, like, of someone being like, yo, we misread the room. We did not understand that the passion was still so fierce for physical media, and we apologize, and we will absolutely be having a disk drive in the PlayStation 6. It'll be a detachable disk drive. You'll buy it separately. But we're committed to the physical media space for PlayStation 6, and we will continue to strive to make sure that all of our first party games are complete on disc throughout the PlayStation 6 generation, in the same way we have committed to that throughout the PlayStation 5 and PS4 generation. And like just saying something like that to be like, we made a mistake, but someone looking in the camera and delivering that message earnestly, like that would be something that a blog post of them saying, hey, we made a mistake, that's enough for me. Like, I'll take it. But to see someone actually deliver that message in a weird way, if you think about it, it could be this turning point of the live service just absolute shit show from the last few years. It seems a lot of those projects are being canceled, and a lot of those projects are unfortunately, studios are being shut down, and these games have come out and stripped from storefronts. And like, I never want to root for people to lose their jobs, especially whenever you have something like Bluepoint, who are put on a God of War live service game, and that is absolutely not on Bluepoint. That is on first party mismanagement 100%. But it is they're definitely turning the page on the live service push being 90% of their focus. And so we could have this perfect storm of like, we've fucked up with the live service stuff. We've already committed. We're telling you that we're getting back to core single player games. And then we fucked up with the physical media stuff. We're going to rectify that. We are going to publicly outline that we were wrong in making this decision, and we're going to this entire showcase, like, if they just rolled out banger after banger because the PS5 showcase, bro, that thing was stacked. That was a great showcase. So if they did that for the PlayStation 6, just had a killer's row, Pragmata 2 exclusive, Silent Hill exclusive, fucking Astrobot 2 launch title exclusive, Uncharted 5 coming in 2029. Like, they just started rolling out like, oh my God. And then the opening announcement is that they're returning to physical media and that they made a mistake there. And then you see an entire showcase for the PlayStation 6 whenever they do their official PS6 showcase that is nothing but like real high quality single player bangers and fair games, of course. But to continue reading here, it says cancel all future live service projects and commit towards single player games. Yeah, and they have said that they're going to continue to find live service projects. The bigger problem with the live service thing, I'm fine with them funding live service games. I don't want them wasting Bluepoint's fucking time making live service games. And I think also with the live service market, you can get creative and still make good, high quality games that are also live service games. But like, my thing I've talked about in the past is like, why are you not investing in more live service sports games and competing with NBA 2K and competing with Madden and competing? Because, I mean, back in the day, it was Game Breaker, right? Was Sony owned, a Sony first party NFL game. And then they had NBA Inside, NBA The Life, NBA Inside, one of those was a Sony first party basketball game. And so they've competed in these spaces before, and now is like the ultimate time where people are losing trust in 2K and have been for over a decade at this point. And the same thing with EA. It's like, get in the game. Yeah. Jesus Christ, I didn't even, yeah, I walked into that one. But really, when I look at that NBA The Run game, it's not great, but I could see you purchasing that team and funding them to, like, you go and talk to EA and get the rights to NBA Street to use the name. I mean, they're probably trying to sell shit off for, I guess they don't even, do they even own the name NBA Street? I don't know how that would work. Would NBA own that? I'm not quite sure, honestly. Regardless, getting that name and just having a game like this, but putting the name NBA Street behind it, because there's a lot of weight behind the name NBA Street and a lot of nostalgic memories there, and being able to fund this team to make something much better, because this is not on par with NBA Street or anything like that, anything even close to that, but it's the closest we've ever gotten, without a doubt. So continuing to fund that and allow them to make a better game moving forward, exclusive to your platform or even live service. You don't have to have it exclusive. So yeah, my problem isn't really at all with the it's my I have no problem with the live service stuff whatsoever. I understand you have to be in that market, but you just got to be in that market intelligently. You don't want to put your core best studios on live service games and then kill them when they're not able to deliver on those titles. Like it makes no sense. Go and find third party partners, fund them, maybe even buy small teams. Like, I don't remember the name of the studio who made NBA The Run, but buy the team and then just have them work on experimental action arcadey sports games. Says be more in touch with what fans want and expect in general. Definitely agree with that. Delay the PS6 by a few years. It is not necessary, and it feels like we haven't seen the potential of the PS5 yet, even though it's been years. Yeah, that's something worth thinking about as well, where, they're already locked into these contracts, so I assume it's going to come out rumor was 2027. I think it'll be 2028. I don't think they're launching the PS6 in 2027. It just doesn't feel like that. And I remember in 2019, or even 2018, there was a feeling that the PS5 was coming very soon. This doesn't feel the same. So I don't think it's 2027, but that's just a gut feeling. I think it'll be 2028. Bring back Blue Point. If I was Blue Point, I wouldn't go anywhere near PlayStation. And then they say, that said, I don't expect any of these to happen, which is why my faith in PlayStation has never been lower. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I feel a lot of negative feelings towards that brand. I think they're so out of touch with what I want, with what the general fan wants, and they are catering 100% towards the consumer and not at all towards the fan, which it's certainly a decision. The Game Collector 12 says physical games dying is pretty shitty, so I'd want that there's no physical games dying is pretty shitty, so I'd want that there's no point in owning a console without it, in my opinion. Yeah, like we said earlier, man, it's hard to argue that one of the core pillars of console gaming is you can't own your games on PC. You know what I mean? You can never legally resell anything you buy digitally on PC. You can legally resell the physical games you buy on console. It's such a major benefit to the consumer and a major reason to stay on console. See, we have Mysticism here who says nothing. They burned that bridge. They told gamers who buy physical they were such a drop in the bucket, arrogantly assuming we'll just assimilate to their digital ecosystem simply because they're Sony. Yeah, it's a lot of this, man. It's interesting seeing so many comments that are in that camp of nothing. It's too late. They burned the bridge. I'm not sticking around for the PlayStation 6 generation. And with that being said, I am so curious what the material impact will be because I'm seeing this a lot, man. And, of course, you have the PlayStation 2 sitting at 160 million units sold. It will not do that. The PlayStation 4 is their next highest selling console at 117 million units sold. It will not do that. PlayStation 1 is at 102 million. PlayStation 5 is at 93 million. PS3 is at 87 million. But keep in mind as well with the PS3 that it struggled for quite a while and then really picked up after significant price reductions. And are we looking at, because with the PlayStation 3, it was so expensive to manufacture, they were taking a pretty decent loss on it, if I'm not mistaken, early on, and I think throughout a lot of the generation. And that was a generation where I think overall they lost money ultimately. And so they were in a position during the PlayStation 3 generation where they had PlayStation wasn't the, it might have still been the majority of the money that Sony made overall, but it was a much closer split. Like right now, PlayStation makes the vast majority of the money for Sony. And if PlayStation 6 just flatlines, so let's say PlayStation 6, I mean, do you guys think it's even going to sell 80 million units? Like, I kind of don't. I see Xbox One down here at 58 million, and my eyes just drift to this. And I'm like, do 58 million people buy a PlayStation 6? You're talking about a drop off. By the end of the PlayStation 5 generation, it'll be at 100 million units sold or close to it. Do you lose 50 million of those people? 40 million of those people? If you lose 40 million of those people, like, that's hard to come back from. And they did it before. You know, when you look at the peak with PlayStation 2, 160 million units sold. PlayStation 3, 87. So you lost, you lost almost half your audience. And you got it back with PlayStation 4. And not to the same degree, of course, but you also had the cheapest DVD player in the world with the PS2. But yeah, anywho, I could go on. I'm fascinated by that 58 million number because I just see so many parallels with the Xbox One and the PS6. I think it'll sell more than that, but I don't know if it even hits 70 million overall units sold. Just with the way that the energy is right now in regards to PlayStation, it doesn't feel like that this is a console that is on track to succeed in the same way that all of their other consoles have, even PS3. But I don't think it's hitting PS3 numbers. And next up here we have JDub8. Once again, thanks for the support on Patreon, homie. Says this might be a hot take, but I wouldn't change a thing about them right now. Between no more physical media, a potentially $1,000 PS6, PSN being flimsy and exploitable, live service flops, etc. I hope that things continue this way for them and that they have a tough PS6 generation. Ideally, this wouldn't be the case, especially a hack, because I would love for things to be the opposite, but the only way things will get better for PlayStation is if they fall flat on their faces. That's the only way that they'll learn. It'll result in a bad product for the consumers, but there are enough good games that have come out over the past 30 years where nobody will be starved for entertainment if they decide to avoid first-party PS6 games or to avoid the PS6 entirely. You know, it's hard to argue with that sentiment. It's hard to argue with the idea that, like, you can only learn if you fail and are punished for your failure. Like, if you continue to walk down this path of ultra anti-consumer behavior and the consumer continues to reward you, then yeah, I don't know. Like, do you even learn a lesson at all? Probably not, right? Because what is the lesson? If it's business as usual, then there's no lesson at all to be learned. And it's not to say, like, once again, I'll probably buy a PlayStation 6 if there are exclusive games tempting me to do so. But I've already made up my mind. It's like, I'm not supporting that digital storefront. You know, I'm not supporting that digital storefront for if I have an option to buy those games elsewhere on other physical, like on Switch 2, for instance, I'm going to take the physical option every time. And so I'll just, I guess I'll buy your first party exclusive content, but everything third party, I'm going to go through Nintendo if they have physical options available. So yeah, I do agree. Like, it's on us to make sure that we hit them where it hurts and vote with our wallet to varying degrees. Once again, like I'm adamant about that idea that there is no one bulletproof plan and you just have to do whatever feels best to you as the individual and vote with your wallet how you see fit personally. And next up here, we have Wisdom 89. They say, I think the biggest problem is there aren't a lot of games. That's my main issue. The problem with the PS5 is that its potential wasn't fully utilized in terms of PS5 games. It seems to me that Sony was more interested in selling the console itself than offering games that people should actually play on it. I think the PlayStation 6 is coming a bit too early and that it probably won't have that many buyers. The only way to really sell the PlayStation 6 would be if they release games like Horizon 3, The Last of Us 3, God of War Remake, God of War Egypt, and, those games at the forefront. Then I think the PS6 will sell reasonably well, even if it's only available digitally. Greetings from Germany. Yeah, once again, it's very much worth pointing out that side of the argument as well. Video games will always sell consoles. And sure, there might be fewer consoles sold for the diehard physical media enthusiasts out there and the people who are just fed up and like, fuck this, man. Fuck you guys. Y'all are really in your evil, arrogant era, and we don't want to support you. That'll hurt them, hopefully. But it's going to come down to the games. It's going to come down to the software. And if they have enough to really compel people where it's like, yo, I'm blown away. I thought that you guys were going to have pretty much everything available on PS5, but this is your PS6 showcase. All of these games are only on PS6 and they're all coming out within the next 2 years. And, the games you listed off, they're all there and available. And it's like, oh shit, even third-party stuff. You have games like LA Noire 2, I'm just thinking Final Fantasy 17, whatever the case may be, and you're getting these third-party games exclusive to the PS6, like you're really pushing to get people on that system. Like, that will work. And I don't want people to be surprised when that works if they roll that plan out. Games will always sell consoles. Exclusive games will always sell consoles, even if you can only buy them digitally, unfortunately. But at the same time, it's like you do have to reconsider just the simple fact that, like, how can you, if you couldn't justify the decision to make God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and these core must-play Sony first-party games exclusive to the PS5 2 years after it came out, how are you going to justify making Horizon 3 and, the God of War remake? And how are you going to justify making these games PlayStation 6 exclusive if you are, obviously you want these games to sell well? And of course, you want people to buy your console, and you're going to make much more money through the digital storefront than you are from a la carte sales from first-party games. Like, I get that, the long-term investment, but man, oh man, dude, you're going to be cutting off a vast majority of your user base who would have access to these games early on. And if you wouldn't do that 2 years into the PlayStation 5 generation, when you had already sold, 30 million, 40 million, something like that, PlayStation 5s by like 2022, 2023. I don't know. I find it difficult to believe that they're gonna, I don't think they're gonna have just a loaded lineup of exclusives. They'll have some, but it's hard for me to believe they're gonna have a lot. And if you don't have a lot and you're charging $1,500 for this thing, good luck to you, I guess. Leon Hart says, key leadership and PR roles have to be replaced by more creative-minded and consumer-facing personalities. We need a Jack Tretton or Andrew House-like figure capable of confidently proclaiming a new era at PlayStation Showcase with a savvy marketing campaign to follow. Clean up the technical back end of the store and console along with consumer policy, security data, preservation, censorship, and requested feature set on your platform. Restructure PlayStation first and second party. Seek out and eliminate seek out and eliminate pipeline deficiencies. Fucking retarded ass. Prioritize cohesion, output, workplace morale, and creative freedom. Take advantage of the market and make key strategic investments in creators and games that differentiate the creative portfolio. Allow cultural and creative autonomy. Sign extended contracts proving your commitment to the most impressive projects. Prioritize PS6 as a Switch-like handheld, relatively budget system. Continue to utilize PS5 Pro as the premium home console experience. Allow a game to be downloaded and played if a disc is inserted in the PS5 at rest mode. If economic conditions recover, release a PS6 Pro at a reasonable price as the replacement to the PS5 home console. I really want to stick with that, your train of thought there in regards to the PlayStation handheld and having to compete with the Switch, which I think is, that's absolutely, like, you have to be, I'm not saying the same price, but you absolutely cannot launch a PlayStation 6 handheld or a PSP2 or whatever you want to call it. You cannot launch that thing at $800, $700 and expect it to really move the needle when you have the Switch sitting there that is very capable on a technical front for a handheld device that's $200 cheaper. It just doesn't make sense. So your idea, though, about the PS6 just being a handheld and then the PS6 Pro being a console later on, here's what I'll say. I don't know if I would do that, but what I think I would do is launch the PSP2, and I might even call it the PSP2. Launch that in 2028, and then launch the PS6 a year later. Or launch even the PSP2 in 2027 and launch the PS6 in 2028. And then have Astrobot 2 available day one when the handheld releases. Of course, it'll be available on PS5, but I think that having a major marquee platformer available for a handheld device, it just, and maybe this is Nintendo strategy and it only works with Mario, but I would be curious to see something like Astrobot marketed as like the game to play on a handheld. And I do think there should be some separation between the handheld and the console. I think launching those at the same day and having two different products for people to choose between, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if they are indeed working on a handheld, which all rumor indicates they are, then launch it 2027 and then launch the PS6 a year later. I very much align with that line of thinking. I don't think that they should launch these things on top of one another. In terms of some of your other points here, the key leadership and PR roles have to be replaced by more creative-minded people. I certainly agree with that. We hit on that earlier. The technical back end of the store needing to be cleaned up without a doubt. Restructure PlayStation first and second party and seek out and eliminate pipeline deficiencies. I don't know why I struggled with that word so much. Deficiencies. Prioritize cohesion, output, workplace morale, and creative freedom. Yeah, I think their key weakness in terms of first party content, it was just the live service push. I think if they get that together and allow for a few studios to make smaller scale games just to keep the portfolio vibrant, I think that's really all they need to do. I don't think they need to make some massive shakeup to their first party ecosystem. They just need to let creative teams make creative games and get the fuck out of that mindset of forcing these studios into live service games. So, yeah, man, I agree with all of those points. And let's see, we got quite a few more. I'll rapid fire run through some of these here. The Dynasty Warrior writes in and says, bring back physical games. I'm honestly okay with paying slightly more for physical games and buying an external disk drive. I just want them to continue to support it, and I will skip PS6 if they don't. So we're in the same camp there of like, I'm willing to pay more, but I want the fucking option to still be on the table. Cut out the live service bullshit. It has almost entirely failed and is eating away at valuable resources, without a doubt. Learn to communicate better. The lack of response to the physical game situation showed me just how much worse Sony is at communicating than Xbox. If they are moving forward with no physical, the least they could do is ease concerns about account security and network stability, discuss what happens to people who have all current games on physical, add protections about ownership, etc. It's a really tough balance in terms of communication about like talking too much, not talking enough. I think PlayStation is firmly in the camp of not talking enough, and Xbox is firmly in the camp of talking too much, to the point where Xbox just non-stop is in this lane of double speak where their plans change from month to month, week to week, seemingly, and they can never get out a cohesive message that they stick with long term. And PlayStation is perpetually in this state of almost aloof, nonchalant, like they don't give a fuck about their consumer. They don't give a fuck about how their core fan base feels about anything whatsoever. And it's like, is there some middle ground, guys? Like, you don't have to be doing podcasts and going out there and laying out plans that you're going to walk back in a matter of months. But at the same time, like, can we understand why you're making this decision? Because like right now, I don't have any idea other than these fake statistics that are out there. It's like, what about like, can you give us a breakdown on how much you're being raked over the coals for the retail splits? Or like, is there any way we can get some insight into the finer details of why you made these decisions? And I guess you can't do that, because then that would be directly admitting that you're trying to eliminate the secondhand market in terms of retailers. But there has to be some way that you can communicate clearly with us why you're making this decision in a more nuanced manner, other than saying, well, it's clearly the shift that our customer is making. Like, okay, well, why does all of your first party single player games data, why does that not reflect what you're saying in this message? And can you be pressed on that? And of course, PlayStation, once again, to your point, they don't do any real interviews with journalists other than very kind of pre-planned and scripted interviews that aren't going to go off the rails. Like, I would love to see a Steven Totillo or a Jason Schreier or a somebody who will actually, a Jeff Gersman, or someone who will really push the issue a little bit to get real information out of Sony. But they don't do that. And yeah, I definitely wish they did. And next up here, we have a question from Olafur Ragnar. It says, physical media matters. Hey, PlayStation, you're a toy company. Make toys the kind people want to collect and interact with and show off to their friends. Foster artistic appreciation and community. Otherwise, quit calling yourself PlayStation, see the forest for the trees, or get lost in the woods. Yeah, I mean, it's... the physical media thing is definitely on the top of everyone's mind, and mine as well. I can't argue with any of that. The next user writes in, no more Marvel games, more Naughty Dog games. Try to acquire studios that Xbox had abandoned, like Arkane, Leon, and Double Fine. Okay, interesting. No more Marvel games. Can we get that X-Men game and then and then we'll make that decision for no more Marvel games? But no, I kind of feel you on that. I can kind of get behind that, because in a hypothetical world where Insomniac was not making all of those Marvel games for so long, it is interesting to think about what that catalog could look like if it were all new IP, or one Resistance game was in there and 2 new IP instead of, let's see, you had Miles Morales 2020, you had Spider-Man 3 2023, and then didn't you have some, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart 2021. It's like, what could those 3 games have been? A new Resistance, let's throw that in there. And then, if you had something like we were talking about earlier, like a futuristic game where you still had that Rift technology. Like, I mean, there is a possibility that in an alternate future where Insomniac was not making nothing but Marvel games, it could be a cooler portfolio to look back on. So it's hard to argue with that. But at the same time, I really fucking love those damn Marvel games that they make. And you say more Naughty Dog games. Yeah, I wish that some of these studios had the ability to just like staff up and split into like 4 or 5 teams. We get a new Naughty Dog game every other year with that same level of quality, but I understand that that doesn't necessarily ever pan out. Try to acquire studios that Xbox had abandoned, like Arkane Leon and Double Fine. Arkane Leon, that, yeah. But we do kind of go back to the same problem of Marvel games because they are deep in development on that Blade title. And I mean, PlayStation has a great relationship with Marvel, and it is kind of an interesting angle to think about, if I'm being real. If Arkane is going to keep their IP, which I don't know, like, it's the thing, right? Where you tell Compulsion, hey, you can keep South of Midnight, Contrast, and We Happy Few. Double Fine, you can keep Brutal Legend and Psychonauts. It's like, well, thanks. We're glad that we can keep Keeper and Kiln. You know what I mean? But like, are you going to let Arkane walk away with Dishonored? I don't know. You know, or is that still under the Bethesda umbrella? Will Bethesda still have ownership of that technically? And within Xbox, which obviously Xbox is going to be the one who gets to make the decision if Bethesda is still, you know, still owns that IP. But if Xbox decided to, you know, say, hey, listen, we're not keeping this IP, we're giving it to Arkane and letting them go and work on a new Dishonored game or a new Prey game or a new whatever the fuck they want to make. Or if, to your point, PlayStation steps in and acquires Arkane with their history working with the Marvel IP. Like, I know that's directly counter to what you suggested earlier, but that would make some sense because there's not really a publisher in gaming who has a more, you know, a closer relationship to to Marvel than PlayStation. So that one is interesting. I don't know about Double Fine. I don't. It's just, I'm stuck in one of those things when you're recording, and like I don't want to say what I have in my brain because it's not nice, but like I don't, you can't just begin speaking and not finish speaking. I don't edit these things anymore. So I apologize in advance, Tim Schafer, for what I'm about to say. Double Fine makes Game Pass games. They were bought to make Game Pass games. And like, I guess you could purchase them and be like, hey, we want you to make a real deal certified smash hit action platformer. And they might have the talent to do so. With Psychonauts 2 was excellent. But I just don't know. I just don't know. Like, I don't know if that team really makes sense to be under any brand who is not building out a subscription service as like their main. Like, maybe Netflix could buy Double Fine if they still want to focus on the gaming initiative. Netflix would make sense. I just don't know if anyone else really would, unless PlayStation wanted to expand their subscription service. But I think with the way how bad Game Pass is failing, like, I don't know if anybody wants to invest more in the subscription service space in gaming right now. All right. And next up here, we have Matt Fletcher, who writes in and says, nothing. I despise this company and I hope it burns to the ground. And this is coming from a PC gamer who isn't even affected by their BS. I simply find their greed and arrogance to be sickening. How dare they not respond to their customers' concerns after years of loyalty? Yeah, that is the thing, right? It's like no response after being just absolutely bombarded on social media. And it's like, okay, you're just posting through it. You're just, sure. It looks goofy as hell to not address this at all, but sure. Mondane says, pull them out of first place. Let's be honest. PlayStation gets too arrogant when they are the industry leader. Challenge the goal of PlayStation to make a good product instead of their main focus being profit. Take the company private. Publicly traded companies are far too concerned with what stockholders think instead of their customers. Bring honor back into their business model because they lost it completely. I obviously wish this could be possible. The idea of taking PlayStation private, or taking almost any of these gaming businesses private, I think would overall just be beneficial to the customer. But PlayStation makes so much fucking money. And I think they were expecting like a 30% increase in profits this year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think they were already at like, I think their margins the last time they reported were like 10%, which is pretty damn high in the gaming space. The gaming space is like a 5 to 15% profit margin range. And if they're around like fucking, even if they're around 20%, like that is astronomical numbers. So yeah, and Sony is just so reliant on PlayStation financially at this point that unless Sony went private entirely, PlayStation will never get that opportunity to go private. So I fucking wish, man. I really wish. Z Guy says Herman Hulst and probably other leaders need to step down. I don't understand how he still has his job after the Bungie acquisition just completely failed. The move towards live service has wasted the PlayStation 5 generation, and they need to change course. They need to focus on good PR rather than boosting the spreadsheets, and he is not the guy for that. Even with him gone, I still wouldn't give PlayStation a penny if they don't reverse the disc situation. PR is an interesting angle to discuss here that you really don't even see them attempting for PR wins anymore. Like, other than getting the marketing rights for Grand Theft Auto 6, I'm genuinely sitting here trying to remember, like, what was the last move PlayStation made where it was something that would hype up, like, the core fans? And this isn't even really a move that hypes up the core fans. GTA 6 is appealing to the widest market possible. So it's like, I guess getting Silent Hill Townfall as an exclusive. But, like, even that's like there's a business motive behind that. There's a business motive behind anything a business does, but I'm just trying to think of something where it's like, damn, that's kind of cool. Just a move that they made that you were like, oh wow, I can't believe they did this. That's, you remember like when Xbox rolled out the backwards compatibility program in 20, boy, what was that? 2014? I don't remember. It was E3 2014, 2015, something like that. And they rolled out that backwards compatibility program, and you were like, oh shit, this is really cool. Like, this is just a cool move. How the hell did the Microsoft corporate allow them to invest so much money in just doing something cool for the customer? And there was a massive PR win on the back of that. And it is like, why can't some things just be cool? You know, why does everything have to be bottom line? And also, if everything is just brass tacks looking to increase profit margins as much as possible, is there like no long-term forecasting for like what happens if we truly squeeze our fan base to the point that they're no longer a fan of us and they're just here? And then what happens if they go somewhere else? What happens if they find somewhere else to go? And it's like, you just squeeze. And here we go. But you hear that term late stage capitalism thrown around. And I think ultimately what that means is it's kind of like boxing, where almost every fight feels like a going out of business sale. And so it's like, fuck it. Mike Tyson's 70. He's fighting one of the Paul brothers. We're going to promote it with this mainstream organization that used to have legitimate fights. We're going to try to make this exhibition bout seem like a real fight that's taking place in front of millions of eyeballs. Just buy this thing because we're about to go under soon. And it feels like almost everyone is aware that the curtain's about to be pulled, and And I don't know, it feels like times are so turbulent and unstable that nothing can be fun. You know what I mean? Like it's like shit is burning to the ground. Make as much money as you can now. Put that shit in a safe before this all crumbles. It feels like that. Everything in society feels like that right now, though. Not just gaming. Like everything feels like squeeze them for what we can get and let's get the fuck out. It's all that energy just in American culture in general right now. Next up here we have a question from Patty Pixel who says digital games is the future whether it happens now or is delayed and happens later. The real battle is ensuring our digital purchases come DRM free with some kind of ownership and offline install file once it comes off the initial server. Yeah, and hopefully y'all can, fight for some legislation, some approval to actually own and be able to resell your digital games through the, through the storefront and then making it to where it's like, I think a strong argument could be made now that if you wanted to own something tangible and to resell it, you had the option to buy it physically. And now if the option is no longer there, them eliminating your ability to resell a product, I shouldn't that, like, there has to be some law there, right? That should be illegal to strip away. And I guess no, that wouldn't hold up, because I was going to say, I guess the way they get around that is by saying we're still shipping codes to retailers, but those codes cannot be resold. And so, like, having a secondhand market and then eliminating the secondhand market entirely, like, surely there has to be some sort of legal ramification for that. I don't know. I'm not a fucking lawyer, but it's that's dark, man. Let's see here. We have Vince Rosenberg, who says, bring physical media back, make a new Twisted Metal game, stop with the games as service, recommit to Japanese game development, keep the handheld priced competitively with Switch 2. So we've hit a lot of these, but recommitting to Japanese game development we have not talked about, and I think that is actually important. And I don't so much think it's important for like Japanese game development in specific. I just think if I'm being real, outside of America. I love America. I want to see you flourish, game developers in the U.S. I'm not rooting against you, but it's just prohibitively more expensive to create games here than anywhere else. And I guess other than Canada. But like, when I see something like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I think it was rumored to be $40-50 million, the budget, I'm like, go and get you one of those. Why in the fuck are you not over in, even just Poland with CDPR? I know The Witcher 4 is $800 million, but a part of me gets more excited about that because it's like, well, damn, what the hell is that going to look like? Because $800 million in US, buddy, it's like, well, that gets you a Call of Duty. That gets you a Call of Duty every year. But what the fuck? What are you cooking up over there? I'm so curious. And I mean, I know that they expanded to America. They have an office in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, and somewhere else in the US, maybe LA as well. But regardless, I'm curious about that, about where that money is being spent on Witcher 4. But yeah, you need to have a presence in these different markets. Without a doubt, you can't be so dependent upon American game developers moving forward. I mean, if you were to just talk about rent prices for a studio like Santa Monica or Naughty Dog, I mean, you're probably looking at over 6 figures a month in rent. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. It's not good. And each developer right now is probably making on average $150,000, $200,000 a year. And so if you have a team of 400 people, you know what I mean? Like it's the most expensive place in the world to create games. And Sony is almost entirely dependent upon it. I shouldn't say entirely. They have, Polyphony, Asobi, I mean, they have more. I'm certain that they have more, but I'm kind of blanking off the top of my head. But yeah, they should definitely be investing in, acquiring studios outside of the United States and Canada, because even like recent acquisitions, when they went and grabbed Haven is out of Canada. So yeah, I would certainly be looking at teams like Warhorse, and which Warhorse got gobbled up by Embracer, but regardless, teams of that ilk for sure. Remedy would be a great, great, great get, because they make those games that are ridiculously polished, and the attention to detail is phenomenal. The cinematics are impeccable. It has a lot of PlayStation DNA in it, but they make them for half the price. Our final comment here comes from Mobcare. It says, get your head out of your ass, support physical media, make a new Sly Cooper, make online play cheaper or outright free. And I think that's the perfect way to end this off, because I could not agree more with all of that. Sly Cooper's tough. I guess you do now have that team who was recently let go by Sanzara, right? The team who made Sly 4, they were let go by Meta. And so you have an opening there. Get the band back together and let them, whatever continuation they had in mind for Sly 5, because I think they were workshopping a Sly 5. Let them go and cook that up. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I know this is a very, very long ass video, but I love y'all's responses. This has become my favorite thing to do by far. I always get a little nervous when I post these. I'm like, damn, I hope that people are, like, have something to say about whatever. Like if I'm asking for hot takes or, your feelings around PlayStation, I still have that mindset that it's like, okay, well, this is going out there to 3 people, and like, how am I going to make a video if I only get 3 responses back? It's like, well, okay, keep in mind, like, this is sort of the perfect limit right now of a subscriber base of close to 5,000 people. It's not too many. Like, I can get through all of these in a couple hours and, provide y'all with some fun long form content. And, also, like, I like to read the temperature from you guys directly, because sometimes as I'm scrolling through the comments and stuff like that, I do like to reply to as many comments as possible, but it can be a little bit tough depending on the video. Like, as soon as something passes a couple thousand views, it does get tough to hit back every single comment. But whenever I post these out there, it's easier for me to get like a clear read on how you guys are feeling. Plus, it's just enjoyable to make content where it's like, it almost feels like a co-host, like reading through y'all's responses. It's like, okay, you're steering the conversation and then I just get to bounce off of that. So if I'm being real, it's quite a bit easier for me as well. So I hope y'all enjoy this, and I'll continue posting these things, guys. Like, if y'all are enjoying this, I'll fucking throw these out there all the time. I love doing this. I've been having a blast with this shit. So thank y'all so much for supporting and responding to these when I post them out there. Yeah, this is really, really fun. So shout out to you guys, and shout out to the Patreon supporters, YouTube members. Shout out to Captain Corndog, Static, and Vin for supporting on Patreon or through the YouTube membership program. Get exclusive podcasts and videos over there, and get access to polls to vote on which content I create each week on the channel. Check all of that out, linked in the description. And I'll see you good people in the next episode. Goodbye.